Jesse, shall we move on?
Let's, because there's plenty of games to talk about.
All right. So, round 9 is in the books, everybody. We're about to talk about some games. A good round this round. Nice close. Bar one. What are your thoughts on the round? Let us know down below. If you're on YouTube, that is. If you're on YouTube.
You can comment on Spotify. I've seen people comment on Spotify. You know what show I've been really getting into? This is really off topic. You know what podcast I've really been getting into lately?
What's that?
Financial audit.
Sure you have. That makes sense.
Unbelievably good.
That's disastrously on brand.
Thank you. It's so good.
Okay.
We should do that for like the Tasmanians team finances when they come in. I just think that'd be quite a funny crossover. I don't think we have the power to organise that. But we can try.
I mean, I probably don't, Jesse. You're a fan, so get in touch with them, see what we can put together. But
from Tasmania to Austin, Texas. What a trip!
What a trip! Oh, is that where it is? Yeah, make that happen. Make that happen. We'll fly over. I was going to say tax write-off, but this is not that business. But no, if you like the games this round, if your team won, if your team lost, let us know what your thoughts are.
If your team drew,
if your team drew, that's right. At CMPerfect_AFL on Instagram, as well as all of those other things. But Jesse, there ain't nothing left to do but talk about these games. And where better place to start than right at the very top? That thing, isn't it? Yes, it is. Wicked. All right. No, we're not skipping, Jesse. We have to talk about this game. Opening up round 9, Thursday, May 8th at Optus Stadium. Freo 12-11-83, defeated by the Pies 15-7-97 in front of 47-7-80. We thought it might be a dead crowd for a little bit at the start. I think it's like 10 minutes to go before bounce down. It was pretty empty, but people came through the gates.
It was a dead crowd. For 47,000, you could have heard a pin drop for half the game.
Were we at the same game?
Yes, it was. I've compared that to Freo games in 2022. Are you joking? It wasn't even close.
We were surrounded by Collingwood fans, so it was kind of hard.
The Collingwood fans made noise, but when you could hear anything. Well, when Freo scored, it was like a cemetery.
Well, and you know why that is, Jesse, and we won't dwell on it, but it's because we don't know what to expect. We never know what to expect, and I think even if our team is starting to look good, in the back of your head, it's always just like, well, what are they going to do to stuff this up? So I think that's why I think a lot of Freo fans are a bit more quiet, is because we just don't know. We're trepidatious. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. After the final siren, if we win, huzzah, the crowd goes bizarre. But during the game, I think everyone's just kind of nervously chewing on their fingers rather than cheering. Is that good? Is that bad? Wolfie time. People got up for Wolfie time. Everyone loves a good bit of Wolfie time. But we've already spoken about this enough, Jesse. We have to talk about the game itself. So Freo, a much better performance than it was against the Saints. I think we can get that off the top. It was a much better performance. But there's one key thing that stood out for me in this game, because we dominated a lot of the stats.
Yes.
Including inside 50s, which we had, 63 of them, which is a relatively high number of inside 50s, Jesse.
It's a truckload.
It's a truckload. But when you've got a 19% efficiency rate when you're going inside 50, it's not going to equate to a win. You can do all the work around the rest of the field, but if your final hurdle is bombing it long to Isaiah Dudley or Murphy Reid, who are both 5'0", and they've got the biggest defense in the competition probably down there, probably not going to get it done. Put it on the floor. Let the kids run rings. But no, bomb along. Another thing I noticed as well is just our efficiency in our disposals as well. Like, even whatever the stats say, one thing you'll notice is that the good teams, even like your Collingwoods, the Adelaides, your Geelongs, is when they're on the run and they throw a hand pass out, guess where he hits them? On the run, in front of them, at their chest. And that's pretty much it. I find with Freo, it's always behind, a grabber across the floor, which is making them putting themselves under pressure to pick it up, and then back it goes the other way. We can't pay. I'm going to stop. I'll let Jesse say something.
Okay. I'm going to whiz through Collingwood first.
Yes, let's do that. Why do we always do this, Jesse? We always talk about our team first. We should start with the opposite team.
Yeah, I always try to, but then you just take off.
Sorry.
Don't leave me. That's okay. I do the same to you 80 times in the episode, so I was only fair to get one back on me. Jamie Elliott, phenomenal. Jack Crisp had a really good game. I thought Darcy Cameron and Mason Cox won the ruck battle in the grand scheme of things. They're able to get service to their key mids. I think they did a really good job with that. It's hard to look at Nick Dacos' performance without talking about Corey Wagner, and I will come to that. But it's very easy to look and say 18 touches, he was rubbish. Obviously a very low output for Nick Dacos, but he was clearly injured. Clearly, beyond reasonable doubt, injured. Hopefully he is okay because Collingwood need him and he's, right up there with the best players in the comp, and we don't want to see the best players in the comp not playing.
Sure.
But I think, you could look at this game without watching it statistically and say, nothing in that. Hopefully Lockie Schultz as well is recovering too after that awful collision with Geordie Clark. I don't think it's pretty clear no player is at fault for that. I think Geordie kind of jumps into it, but I think it's more a case of he wasn't expecting Shooter to be there more than anything. It's like, oh no, right in front of me.
It doesn't get air. It's kind of just like a stop and prop kind of like, oh. And just as a sidebar before you continue, I think we have to call out, unless you're about to do it, I think we have to call out how the umpires refused to stop the game.
Yeah, that was poor.
After that happened. The umpire said they didn't see it, even though there was an umpire 5 meters away from Lockie while he was fencing when he was knocked out on the ground.
There's only one solution, though.
What's that? 5
field umpires.
Yeah, 5.
There was a blind spot. You must get a 5th one out there immediately.
Well, here's the thing. It's not just the field umpires. You got apparently, according to a couple of weeks ago, you can just get a word in your ear that the call was wrong, and you can just change your call. So they've got people talking to them. You've got 4 boundary umpires. They're all mic'd up. 11 umpires, Jesse. 13 umpires is what we need.
46 umpires, 1 per player, including the medical subs.
That's right. And then a camera on each and every player, each with their own umpire. So at any point in the game, they can get called for whatever.
Well, Nick Dacos did have his own camera for half the second quarter.
It was one stage after a goal. What was it? We had the 30-second countdown after a goal.
24 of it was Nick Dacos.
Nick Dacos. But the trainers as well with Shooter should have kept him down on the floor.
Yeah,
he got up.
Look.
Nah, tried to run off, fell over again. Like, we hope he's okay because it was a nasty hit. It was a nasty concussion. So all the love to our former docker. Anyway.
The people bullying him, grow up.
Yeah, I didn't hear that, but you said that you could hear it.
In general, right? I'm not sure if the booing when he went off was conflated with the set shot, and maybe people were booing the set shot while Shooter was going off, and maybe that got a bit lost in translation. But the people booing him throughout the game, grow up.
Yeah, it's AFL fans aren't going to stop doing that. So
yeah, but there's players like Cherry you can boo fair game. Boo Lob, boo Cherry, that's fine.
Yeah.
But Shooter made it clear he wanted to go home for family reasons. He did all the right things. He never, if there was ever a player that gave 100% every single game they played, it's Lockie Schultz. I think the fans need to have a bit more respect for that, and it was quite disappointing to me. That he was a target of that because, it's same with Lockie Neal too. People do it to Lockie Neal and they boo Lockie Neal and they get really cross when Lockie Neal gets 35 touches and torches us every time he plays as an Optus.
It's what he do. That's what he do.
Let's talk Fremantle because I do have a lot to say about this and I'm really glad this game's going on first. It means I can cut time on the Sunday games as needed.
Wait, no, the Sunday was good.
I know, but I still cut their time to talk about Fremantle. Because now I'm talking, and you have difficulty stopping me when I'm talking.
All right, everyone, get your popcorn out, get your drinks. Let me get my drink here. Off you go, Jesse.
Okay. This game, I think in ways, frustrated me more than the St Kilda game.
Okay.
Because, when you get humiliated by an average side in St Kilda, outcoached, tactically humiliated, embarrassed in front of that footy, that is, that's quite a low point. And it was awful. It's one of the most, it's probably the worst game I've seen Fremantle play under Justin Longmuir, except for, I think it was the COVID game against Geelong where we kicked a 1-goal-7, which ironically wasn't far off what we kicked against St Kilda. But this game was very different because I think this list had Collingwood on Thursday night. I truly do. This list had Collingwood on Thursday night. But the difference was, one was on the bench and one was in the coach's box. But the difference was who's moving the magnets. Fremantle got the hot start, and Luke Jackson starts in the ruck. Fremantle get the hot start, get the first 2 goals. Darcy comes in, game dies. Game just dies for Fremantle. because Darcy can't move. And look, we don't know what the extent of his injury is, and obviously we're going to separate these things, but I've been saying Sean Darcy's unfit all season. So I'm not going to ease off on that criticism today just because he had an injury. If he was injured coming in, he shouldn't have played. Because you dropped Oscar McDonald to allow Jackson to come back in and partner Darcy when McDonald had one game 7 out of 10, one game I'd say probably 9 out of 10 against Melbourne and then a home against Adelaide. You make that decision. That's not necessarily Sean Darcy's fault. I think it's a terrible team selection. You know, I don't care how much he's being paid. If he's not fit, he shouldn't be playing. And Sean Darcy's not looked fit at one stage this season. So that was bad. Darcy comes on the game, dies. Wagner tags Dacos, and yes, it is fantastic that Dacos only got 18 touches. But Nick Dacos got 18 touches on one leg, and the second half of the second quarter, Dacos burnt him as deep forward 3 times. You know, let's cool the jets on the praising of Wagner, because I think that's a very different result if Dacos is healthy. It's like sending the vulture to the buffalo carcass who's already dead, as opposed to the active buffalo who's stomping around the savannah. 2 very different scenarios there. You know, the vulture's probably going to win that battle by way of being alive. Corey Wagner is meant to win that battle on virtue of having 2 legs, and yet 3 times in that second quarter, he did not.
I'll give you 2 more points, Jesse, because we should move on. Go on.
Okay. This team, I said this team would win a premiership under Justin Longmuir. I don't think this team will make finals under Justin Longmuir. Like, you can forget it now. Negative record, hard month coming up, going into the bye. Well, you got Giants in there, you got Port in there. I certainly wouldn't say either of those games are easy games. You know, looking ahead, you got West Coast again, but that's a derby. That's not exactly a freebie. Still got to play some very good sides. I don't see it. Got to play Collingwood again. That's not going to work. Got to play Brisbane. You know, you're almost chalking up losses against top 8 sides because the game plan doesn't work, and against bottom 6, bottom 8 sides, that's not working either. So I know I say this every week, and I think it's quite boring for our listeners, but they've got to move Longmuir on. They've got to make this call, because I sat there in the final 5 minutes alone in my block, and it genuinely was a moment of reflection. Mm-hmm. Looking at this list, looking at the players we have, looking at that scoreboard, knowing or at least believing that this team, pound for pound, could beat Collingwood, but yet we're so tactically backwards. You know, what is with this obsession with the anchor?
Yeah.
To kill the game. We don't need to kill the game. You know, if it's a fitness issue, what were we doing for 4 months in pre-season?
Yeah.
If it's a skill issue, like if it's generally a skilled player issue, why are unskilled players in the team, players who can't dispose of the ball properly, when you've got quality players like Aish in the waffle, Narkle in the waffle, now Narkle's out for 8 weeks. So good luck getting back him. That's also a horrible decision. I'm 2.5, because I'm still getting my extra point at the end. Seriously, what is Narkle meant to do? Gets 2 games as sub, comes on late in the fourth quarter.
It's been 10 minutes already.
Not finished. Comes in late in the fourth quarter against Adelaide and almost nails a screamer from the boundary, hits the post. Then comes on against the Saints in a dead rubber game, gets 6 touches and a goal, and then gets dropped. Like, seriously. Mm-hmm. What do you want him to do?
Well, I mean, they also dropped Draper after 1 bad game.
That's also a shocker.
Yeah.
And it's not. But it's okay, because Luke Ryan had a great game, didn't he? Jogging after Jamie Elliott for 3 hours and spraying the ball up the line.
All right, Jesse.
Okay.
All right.
Final point.
Make it quick.
No. Final point. Stick with Matty Johnson. The handball to no one in the third quarter, where he just got into 50 and just handballed it, looked really bad. But he literally had 4 players in front of him not moving, while Chris was able to leave his man and close him down.
Yeah,
it's shocking. You've got to give the kid a chance.
Movement and skills, I think, 2 of the things that Freo really have to work on. But hey, we will move on. I think what we'll have to do from now on, Jesse, is I'll have to put like a little warning at the front saying Freo game. Jesse's about to go crazy. Liam might also go crazy, and then people can just fast forward or do whatever.
I feel like people shoot in for the cinema of me talking about Fremantle, because it's going to be really. It's going if there's ever this imaginary dreamland where this club is good.
Yeah,
we're going to have no viewers.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, because
you'll find a way.
It's going to be me swooning over Caleb Sarong for an hour. And I mean, I could do that as it is.
Yeah.
But there's also 80 million other issues to talk about. But let's talk about Friday night football. This game, Liam, I'm offended by this game. This was a Friday night game of football. Great crowd, first of all. Fantastic crowd.
Yeah, it was a big crowd for Spud's game. St Kilda 9-8-62, defeated by Carlton 11-11-77 in front of 65,680, which is a very, very healthy crowd for sure. But yes, no, it was
yeah.
But it was I had vibes this game, Jesse.
You did have vibes this game.
I had vibes this game. And when we tipped this game, I said, I don't know. And I think after it's finished, I probably still couldn't tell you what it was that made Carlton win this game over St Kilda. What happened?
I think Carlton just were able to control the ball just that little bit better. You know, they got first hands to the ball. They got plus 16 in contested disposals. Both teams down significantly on their season average in that category. So I thought that was quite interesting. But, you know, hit-outs 42-34 in favour of Carlton. Clearances 43-33 in favour of St Kilda, in favour of Carlton. But crucially, plus 9 to Carlton in stoppage clearances. So that's not your centre bounces.
Yep.
And I think that's where the game was won. Carlton, in those stoppage situations, were better set up than St Kilda. And I think that's more of a comment on St Kilda's depth in that midfield. And obviously, McRae's having a phenomenal season, but really, I think they're struggling around him at the moment to consistently get first use of that football. They were obviously dominant against Fremantle in that regard, but they have had games. I think the Dogs game's a really good example of that, where they just couldn't get near it. Again, against an elite midfield, and Carlton, I think, do have a very good midfield themselves, but pretty clear to me that St Kilda still have a lot of work to do. I think this was disappointing in a lot of ways for St Kilda supporters, that they'll be wanting to get these type of results behind them. Carlton look like they've gotten most of the heebie-jeebies from the start of the year out of their system. I still don't think this was a particularly convincing performance, but this is a game they would have dropped 6 weeks ago. Yeah. I can confidently assert that without any shadow of a doubt. If this is round 3, St Kilda would have won this game if it was played exactly the way it was on Friday night. So
question then. So Saints, who obviously destroyed Freo not a couple of weeks ago, and the Saints fans would be wanting to see a rebound of that kind of form, right? What is it is it just Ross Ross knows how to coach some teams better than others? Some teams or the coaches from other teams know how to read his play. What do you reckon it is that St Kilda are so kind of up and down, topsy-turvy with these performances? I do think the Saints are quite a reactive side. And like you pointed out, you know, Ross can coach to a system, but it's also worth remembering, they've only won one of their last 5, and that was against Fremantle. So they're actually not in very good form. Oh. They came into that Fremantle win having lost their previous 3 and they've versed some good sides. They've beaten easily by Brisbane, beaten easily by the Dogs. They're reversing good opposition in those games, but they were out of form. Then they smack Fremantle at Marvel and then land in this game. So they're actually in one of the worst form slumps in the competition over those 5 games. Now, obviously, contextually, there's a 10-goal win in there. And I don't think they're going too badly across the board. But like we said a few weeks ago, Liam, this is just a big transition for St Kilda. Yep. This is not a final season for the Saints. I know I'm far from his biggest fan, but their best forward isn't playing in Max King. So, you know, there is that issue that they're clearly committed to Max being a part of this team. So if you're going to build a forward line around him, you're going to want him to be there, and he's not. So I think there's a lot to work through here, but gee, they want to keep Wanganeen Miller. That is priority number 1. Forget going after anyone else in this offseason. I know they want to put an offer in front of the Bont. I know they want to get, you know, the silly offers in for De Koning and everything, who had a very good audition against his potential future side. But ironically, your 2 best players you've nominated there, Liam, Wanganeen Miller and Marshall, both have significant question marks about their future at the Saints. That's a worry for St Kilda. Wanganeen Miller, it's priority 0. It's not even priority 1. It's a non-negotiable for St Kilda Football Club this season to get that signature. And for those who don't know the parlage? That's not a word. Don't know the vernacular. Priority 0 is like yeah, it's you must get it done.
Yeah,
You must
it's
get
more
it done.
important than priority one.
Yeah. Although it doesn't sound like it, does it?
No.
Priority 0. What about Carlton? Are they on the up and up now? What's going on with them?
They've stabilised. When we did the Contenders Pretenders duds a couple of weeks ago, I said they'd gotten themselves from duds to pretenders. I still think they're in that bracket. Still pretending. But they're looking a lot better than they were 6 weeks ago.
Parlance was the word I was looking for before. Got there eventually. Let's move on to the next game. Saturday, May 10th at the McG. Melbourne, 7-14-56, defeated by the Hawks, 13-13-91 in front of 50,351. I mean,
this was close.
It was for about 3 quarters. And then the Hawks were like, okay, guys, good fun, good show. We're just going to kick away with this now. What was it, 6-1 final quarter, I think it was. I mean, look, good on Melbourne for giving it a crack. You know, they tend to be doing that more and more as the season goes on. But with these teams who are on the bottom end of the table again, it just seems to be that end of game fade outs it's really killing them. It's really killing them. Hawks pretty good though. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, the Hawks are good, and I like this win because although Melbourne aren't particularly good this season, they're experienced. And if you get dragged into a quagmire with experienced sides, it can be hard to get out of just because they know what they're doing. And I think that was West Coast before the detonation. You know, if you got stuck in that game when they still had Shuey, obviously Yo's still there, but when Yo was actually playing, they had those experience and they had these guys on their list. If you got dragged into a quagmire, it was hard to battle out of. And it probably saved them in 2022. I think that's a lot of Melbourne this year for me. They've got their head above water, but it is just their head, and that water is rising fast. It's good that you got Langford in that. We put Langford in that best. That's a really positive sign for future. He had a fantastic game on Saturday. Looked really at home out on the G. But you know, Petrarca and Gawn, they're not going to be around forever. I think Gawn's having a statistically remarkable month. If you extrapolate that, he's been unbelievable. He's probably, you know, Dwayne Russell said Lockie Ash has been the best player in the comp this year. That isn't true, but I think Gawn is certainly the best player in the last month. I don't think even Ash is the best player on his team this year. I think Lockie Whitfield's had a better season, but
yeah.
You know, Gawn's in the last month, you'd struggle to find a more informed player than him.
Yeah, well, Track and Gawn are basically lifting Melbourne up and
the
up
carcass
and through
of Melbourne.
Yeah, they're lifting him up and through. So yeah, he's a good player, isn't he, Gawn? And he's you can see why he's always up and around the All Australian conversation as well, because it's something so unassuming about him as well. Not his stature or his look. That's very assuming. But just the way he carries himself. It's he's very chill. And I like that in a player. You know, some of the players take a bit too seriously, but he's just like, you know what, got a job to do. Let's get it going. They win a game. He's like, yeah, it's pretty good. Like Gawny. I like Gawny a lot. Anything else for this one game? Anything else for this game, Jesse? Wow.
That was weird. Yeah, I like what Hawthorn's defensive structure is able to do because they're getting a lot of disposal of halfback, and it's allowing them to bypass the mids a lot of the time, which isn't a criticism in their midfield, but it just means that ball's moving a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Let's move on to the next game. Oh, yes. Saturday, May 10th at the MCG. This wasn't the MCG. Am I going crazy? Was that Marvel?
It was at Marvel.
It was at Marvel. I'll fix that. Essendon 11-5-71, defeating the Swans 8-15-63 in what can only be described as a game that should have been a shellacking. But
Yes.
I think Essendon broke a record, Jesse, I believe, for winning a game where for the longest time without actually scoring a goal before the end of the game. I think it was a quarter and a half they went without scoring a goal, but still managed to win.
Bit of annual leave for their Saturday afternoons. Always good to get a half day from work. Look, this is... let's start with Sydney.
Okay.
Because, gee, does this not epitomise everything I've said about the Swans this season?
It does.
They've kicked 8 goals. They failed to beat a bad side. They've had no output from anyone not named Grundy or Chad Warner. Blakey's gotten in there because he was solid, but where is that middle market for Sydney? You know, you talk about that band of players who maybe your 10th to your 15th, 16th best players, non-existent, anonymous, and then even worse, your 16th to 22s bad again. This is really bad from Sydney. You know, they were always going to fall, in my estimation, this year. Always going to fall. But they are alarmingly poor. And they have, the worst part is they're not playing good football either. They have no answers. They offered nothing. They barely scraped over 60 points, and we talked about that metric last week. And Sydney were the most glaring team for just not being involved in that at all. They kick their 60 to 70 points every week and go home. That's not going to win you more than 5-6 games this season. They've had a tougher draw than some, sure, but they've also really missed the boat. Like, this is the team they should be beating. They should be beating the Bombers, and they're not.
Yeah, it was crazy because like I tipped them last week. You tipped the Bombers because you were, to your credit, been very steadfast in your views of the Swans this year, and they keep proving you right, which I know you love. But the but yeah, it's shocking. I think I saw the score. I wasn't able to watch this game live, but I saw the score and I was just like, what is it, 55-8 or something? And I was like, what is going on?
It was one-way traffic for 2.5 quarters, and although Essendon just genuinely stopped, and we talk about teams stopping and just not doing well, but Essendon just genuinely went home. Yep. And Sydney still couldn't get over the line. Swans 1 from their last 4, Bombers 4 from their last 5. So a look at the form table shows 2 very different teams. To Essendon's credit, I mean, that one loss in there is Anzac Day as well. So they're getting wins on the board. You know, there's plenty of teams. I mean, behind them, Carlton, Fremantle, Port, 3 teams who are probably in that finals conversation. You can, I don't want to, but you can throw Sydney in there as well if you have to. Even St Kilda. No, we're not doing St Kilda. So you've got 4 teams behind them that were in some form of finals conversation, whether ours or others, coming into the season, that the Bombers are ahead of. And not just ahead of on percentage, they're ahead of in the win-loss column, having played a game less.
Yeah. How much of a difference did the efficiency make? Obviously 11-5, 16 scoring shots to 23. So Swans, it wasn't like the Swans didn't have their chances.
But this was the battle of the bridge all over again. You know, Sydney fell over the line against the Giants and butchered just about every chance they got in the last quarter. The Giants were ineffective and couldn't take control of that game. This was a very different setup, but the problem just ultimately remains the same. You know, looking through some of these numbers, Dons 126 marks to 92, so they marked the ball 30 times more than their season average in this game. Now, that's complete control. Tackles 60 to 46 in favour of Essendon, so they're just getting their hands on that football more. 1%ers 43 to 31. These are non-negotiables. You know, if you're playing poor football, your tackling, your effort, your 1%ers, your commitment, they can't be falling by the wayside. And for Sydney, they are. They're just not competing. You want to talk about efficiency stats. Sydney actually had better efficiency inside 50, 39% to 33. But, I mean, it's a coach killer when you're talking 16 scoring shots for 71 points versus 23 scoring shots for 63 points. You know, that's going to kill you more often than it's not.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully, we'll see what the Swans do because, it's been a weird old season for the, I was going to say the reigning premiers, the reigning grand finalists. We've seen these years afterwards kind of happen, where one of the grand final teams, or if not both, slide. But this seems particularly bad for the Swans.
It's a long way back.
It's a long way back. All right, let's move on to the next game. Round 10 up in Darwin. Round 10. My God. May 10 up in Darwin. We've got the Suns 15-16, 106 defeating the Dogs 14-12, 96. And what was a bit of a cracker up in Darwin. They do all right up in Darwin, don't they, the Suns? Pulling in nearly 10,000 up there as well. Game 1 of 2 of their back-to-back up there. Another cracker surely this Thursday night as well. But what is it about what is it about the Suns in Darwin? They're just really good up there. I mean, they're pretty good this season anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously. But I mean, last season they were okay and they smashed Geelong. But they seem to just have a special aura about them up there, Jesse.
I think they just play the conditions better. But let's unpack this game, because if this is a grand final matchup this year, which is a possibility.
Sure.
We should get a cracker.
Yeah.
Even at the G, we should get a cracker because these sides just love to attack this season. And I've watched this game so grumpy because this is everything that football should be this year.
Yeah.
And my team doesn't do it. And that made me really cross. But then at the same time, this was awesome football to watch. The Suns managed to get a good arm's length on the Dogs. it got close late, but they repelled it. And we've seen the Suns do that against Adelaide as well this season. And now the Dogs. That's two potential top 4 sides. I think certainly top 8 sides that they've managed to grind out wins against, still with an attacking mindset. That's not easy to do. This is really exciting for the Suns. Now, yes, Darwin, I think, is very much a helping hand for them. They clearly love playing up there. But the manner in which they got the win done, despite the Dogs, I think, if you look at some of the key metrics, they marked the ball 26 times more, tackled 20 times more, uncontested possessions they were ahead of by 50 over the Suns. So they had really good use of the football, had 40 more disposals. So they were getting their first hands to the ball, the Dogs, but the Suns, despite kicking 15-16, just took their chances and played Teo better. It was a good old-fashioned arm wrestle this game with two good sides matched up against each other, and I think we would be lucky if this was a final. And I know it won't happen, but I would love to see the Suns have an opportunity to play a final in Darwin if they chose to. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
It won't.
But if I'm Hardwick, if I'm Damien Hardwick, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to that. I want my team playing where we play our best football. They play excellent football at People First this year, but they clearly love Darwin. They'll probably lose on Thursday night. I've said this, but do you know what I'm saying? Like this isn't just like a home away from home. And I think you can say the same thing for the Dogs at Ballarat, but this is a more pronounced example of this. They clearly love the Darwin conditions there. I think this was easily the match of the round for me, which unfortunately robbed a lot of eyeballs from another contender for match of the round, which we'll come to now, unless you have anything to add on this game.
No, the only things I would like to add to this game is I am loving watching both these teams this year. Both of them are just like it's that fast attacking footy, Jesse, you're speaking about. It's just a delight. And when both teams are playing that football and both teams are playing it well within the same game, hot dog. It's a good old game. And Kennedy is killing it as a Bulldog. He's doing fantastic work.
That's all right. We'll just have him out in the second quarter in a key final that we have to win.
Yeah, right. That's how we do it, right? This game. This is what you're talking about, right?
Another great game.
Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide, 12-12-84, going down to the Crows, 13-11-89. Showdown. Always puts on a good show, doesn't it, Jesse? 53,117 in the house with this one. And again, it was a case of the Crows kind of looked like they had Port covered. It was all fine. And then Port made a massive surge towards the end there. Just, if there was another couple of minutes on the clock, might have got it done.
I think they probably would have.
No.
Because they were, it was all going. But at the same time, Adelaide know how to win these games of football.
Yeah.
This was an awesome. If you want an ad for football outside of your Victorian markets, put this game on. This was brilliant, and the finish as well. I know we had a draw. I know we had plenty of good finishes. Outside of maybe one game on the Sunday, I think this is the best finish to the weekend. This was unbelievable. The crowd, I think, really lifted this too. For obvious reasons, being a rivalry game, but there was a real sense of occasion with these two sides. It's difficult for Port because this result goes the other way. They're probably sitting in ninth. I think that the percentage swing probably just squeaks them past Essendon. But now they're 13th.
Mm.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, especially at this stage of the season where the wins now are going to start compounding, or in the losses more so than anything else.
This is not the time to be dropping games because I've always said you want to have a hot start over a hot finish, because if you have a hot start and you go out of form, you can fix that. But if you start poorly, you're relying on other teams to get out of your way, as well as you performing to make those finals. And it can go both ways. Hawthorn last year's a prime example of when that does go right. But there's been innumerable teams locked out of the 8, locked out of the 4, because they left their runs too late.
Fogarty and Phil Thorpe. I feel like we have to speak about him every week just to say his name. Both of those guys, again, up forward, they're formidable. They're
Monsters.
They're absolute monsters. Like, they're the kind of forwards you can just chuck it up in the air and you can be like, you know what, pretty good chance they're going to clunk that. And once they get them as well, they're just dead-eye dicks with them. Dead-eye dicks. But what would you expect from a showdown, Jesse? They're usually pretty fiery occasions, pretty heated battles.
There was feeling out there for sure.
Of course. And that Power Pepper goal as well, the nasty bounce, or the lovely bounce, as it were, apparently a staple of the showdown. Apparently, it happened all the time. I heard. The leg break. Love it. Anything else, Jesse, or shall we move on?
Let's move on to the Sunday.
Well, 6 points total, Jesse, between all three of these games was the margin. Let's start at that MCG.
What a great day to watch the footy it was.
It was indeed. Richmond, 11-15-81. Oh, dear. Getting over the Eagles, 11-13-79 in front of 29,539. It's a bit of a heartbreaker, isn't it, for the Eagles fans? It was
I'm going to start here.
You can start and you can continue.
Because anyone who is criticising Gross for getting caught holding the ball is an idiot. Because there was 4 West Coast players standing around, not calling him through, not attempting to put a block on, just leaving him to his own devices. He's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
He's going for it. If he's not told he's hot, what do you actually want him to do? Put in the comments if you're a Gross blamer for this result, and I've seen plenty of those. Go and put it in the comments what he's meant to do. And to be fair, I've seen plenty of West Coast fans jump straight to his defense.
Yeah, good.
Rightfully so. But there's been a few, and I don't understand that mindset, because West Coast lost this game in the last 5 minutes of the third quarter, where they just completely lost the plot, didn't defend, and allowed the Tigers back into. I said at the time watching the game, I said, you need to win this third quarter. You need to go with more than a goal buffer, because I think they were up by 2 goals at that point in time. You've got to maintain this, or 10 points. You've got to maintain this. They didn't. Richmond got a very, very late goal. Went in, I think, 1 point, 2 point margin.
I think 3 points up, yeah.
And that always put the game back on that knife's edge. Concerning for the Eagles here, because much has been made about the fact that the 0-9 and that where's that win going to come from. And this was very clearly a game circled in that calendar. This is hard, though, because I don't think this group has the mental stability right now to get over this loss. And I'm happy to talk about senior players like I do every week. Kelly was anonymous. Duggan was poor. Allen usually cops it. He was injured, so we can't blame it on him. Waterman missed key set shots.
He did.
That he should be making.
Very uncharacteristic.
Hunt was anonymous. I know you got him in your best, but I don't feel like he had much of an impact on the game. It was left to Baker, Graham, I thought, put in the shift, and kids. It's left to your Hewitts and your Harleys to try and make something happen. Harley, I think, had a good game, but he got distracted.
Well, he does. But at least in this game, what he was doing seemed to be having some sort of impact, which is not what we can say about the rest of this year by any stretch of the imagination. So getting distracted every now and then is still going to be a part of his game, part of his character. But at least he was having an impact in this particular game. But I was wheeling him across the line, Jesse. I really was. I was just going, come on, lads, come on. 15 lead changes.
It was an awesome game of footy.
Yeah,
it genuinely was a fantastic game of footy.
It was.
For Richmond, I loved this for the Tigers.
Okay.
Because West Coast were throwing everything they had. This was the culmination of not only 8 weeks of frustration, disappointment, anger. This was 3 years worth for some of these guys. The win-loss record for some of these players is horrid.
Yeah.
They don't win games of football. So they were going all out. You could see it on Gross's face when he was tackled. He was gutted. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a case of not caring. He was devastated.
He almost didn't want to get up. He was just
he wanted to just go through the ground.
Yeah. Liam Ryan was there to pick him up and be like, "Come on, mate."
And that's working too. Ryan in the midfield. It's like when you just change something, little tweak of something. Ryan in the midfield's working. I know West Coast have had an embarrassment of riches in that midfield for so long, so we haven't had the opportunity to really see Ryan go through there. But right now, he's providing a spark. He's played good games and kept West Coast competitive in said games. I reckon he's got to keep going. McCalder clearly knows that too. I'd be very surprised if he's not getting a decent number of centre bounce attendances on Sunday afternoon.
All right. Cracking game between the two bottom of the table teams there. Let's move on to the second last game. Jesse, we had another high scoring cracker this time from the bottom to the top. Here we go. GMHBA Stadium, Geelong 14-17, 101, defeated by the Giants 16-9, 105 in front of 28,407. Now, had I known this stat, I learned this on Saturday night. I was at a 40th birthday party, Jesse, because that's where I'm at in my life now. And I was talking to a Geelong supporter, and I was saying, look, you guys should have a good game. GMHBA Stadium, and he goes, the Giants have won the last 4 there. And I was like, have they now? That would have been great before I did the tips. And here's why. They keep the streak. They keep the streak alive. 7 goals by Hogan, Jesse Hogan. What are your thoughts on this one?
Great game of footy again. If I can just record, play for this week.
Which is better than last week, because last week was record, play, but the complete opposite.
That is true. Does this mean the Giants are back? No.
Ooh.
I do think this game exists in its own vacuum a little bit.
Okay.
What I'm concerned about, though, is Geelong's disciplined rigidity and stability. I don't think it's been that strong in recent weeks. I mean, I'm always very strong on the Cats as a side, but I think they'll be disappointed to have lost this game. You know, they're probably lucky. If it had that sec shot from Crisp gone in against the Pies, they've lost their last 3 games.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very different scenario that we're talking about here. They're still in the 8. They've got a game against Port that's a must-win for both sides this week coming up. So a lot to still unfold there. But yeah, Liam, I don't know. I feel like this is a bit of a danger sign for Geelong to not win this game. Because the Giants have been they've been aggressively on the slide, losing their last 3 games before this.
Yep.
And yet they kicked 16 goals. They lost Stringer to a hamstring injury early, so changes had to be made. They still got the job done.
Geelong are the team that we always talk about, you know, being on the slide. We always say they're really good, but they're what, 5-4 now?
Yes.
So, you know, in their pack, they're in the pack of that like middle of the table.
Oh, they're right in the pack.
Right in the pack. You always still think about them as Geelong, the greatest team of all, at the top of the table. But yeah, maybe I won't call it a slide because it's obviously not that. But maybe that little dip is actually there that we've been seeing for the last few years. But just because they're such a talented team with an amazing side, an amazing coach, this is their slide potentially.
Perspective is key though here. They kick themselves out of the St Kilda game and they kick themselves out of this game.
That's true.
Late.
That's
so,
true.
You know, and I know it's very easy to just play ladder Jenga, but I do genuinely think that they should have won both these games, St Kilda and the Giants. That's a very different ladder position scenario. So it's not time to cool off on the Cats.
Is it ever?
No. But I think perspective is important with Geelong. They'll be disappointed they've lost these 2 games. They'll be really disappointed they lost this game. But I think they'll still make the 8.
Yeah.
They've got the tools to make the 8.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not panic just yet.
No, of course not. All right, Jesse, let's finish up with the last game of the round. Okay, sure. At Ninja Stadium, down in Tassie, 7,961. Saw North Melbourne 10-11-71. Draw with the reigning premiers, 10-11-71.
How good is footy?
Oh, another one I was just going, come on, boys, just one more point. Come on. Comben saved him in that last quarter as well. He was huge, taking those intercept marks up back. He was fantastic. Oh, I was praying for it. Didn't quite happen, but a draw against the reigning premiers is a massive step forward for North. That said, it is North, so we'll see what happens next week. But they played out of their skin in this one, Jesse. Yeah,
they did. North played Tassie a lot better than people give them credit for. They usually are competitive down there, even if they're not winning. They were brilliant, and I think they should have won this game. They had that ball going forward. I know why Larkey was the option, but it was a bad option. You know, I get it. You want the ball in the hands of your best player, but is a 20-meter pass to someone who's being heavily marked on a lead that's going to be 45 out from goal the best option when you can go deeper in a late. Yeah, like normally in the first 3.5 quarters, I'm saying, yeah, you absolutely try and hit that kick. But late game is key. The closer to that goal mouth you get, the better.
Yeah. I think the it was telling as well that the part of North's ability to shut down a game wasn't there either, because obviously Darling kicked that late one on the goal line, or was it Parker? One of the two. I think
Darling got one. Yeah.
Darling got one late. And then Brisbane just went bang and got it straight back.
Yeah, but that's a very good side. That's a harsh benchmark to go against.
I know that, Jesse, but what I'm saying is like that's a good learning experience for them, because obviously if you're fighting tooth and nail against the reigning premiers and you are North Melbourne, who are currently second from the bottom, that's going to be something that's going to be like stuck in that craw. It's going to be stuck in your brain, just going, what do we have to do to get across? But alas,
what I will say is for Brisbane, I would say Brisbane to Hobart, apart from the two WA sides, is the worst trip in the league.
Why?
Travel-wise. Same
side of the country, isn't it?
Yes. That's why I put ours higher. But I do think that's the worst trip in the comp. The second worst trip in the comp.
There's been a lot of travel, actually. Like, even the Bullies between... I feel like Bullies have been around the traps the last month or so, though.
Yeah, they've done Perth, they've done Ballarat, they've done...
Adelaide?
Yep. Yeah, Darwin. Yeah, they've done Darwin now. Yeah, they've travelled a bit, so that's nice. But no, look, Liam, I think, obviously, you got to give them a bit of a mulligan for the Lions, and they escaped with a draw when they probably didn't have a right to. So they'll be fine. They'll dust themselves off. They're not going to play North in the finals. Barring something absolutely absurd. So I think when you have these games against bad sides, you can let it go.
Yep.
And you can just delete it from your mind, and that's got to be the mindset you have. You know, didn't play anywhere near the Brisbane best. That's okay. You're not going to play North again when it matters, when it really, really matters. Just delete it. Get on with it on the track. They've got a pretty softball game this week as well. If they're not winning that, then you might have a different conversation. But you know, in isolation, they got 2 points out of it still. So they're not even, they've dropped 2 points to go from first to first. Oh no.
Horrible scenes. All right, Jesse, that wraps it up. That's all the games for this round 9. It's done. It's in the book. Would you like to send everyone home?
I would. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and have autoplay set for our Just the Tips preview for round number 10. If you're on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon, make sure you head over to YouTube and check out our Just the Tips and let us know who you think is going to win in a bumper round of football. Make sure you're leaving a review as well, but the best type of review you can give us is word of mouth. So make sure you tell your friends, your family, and the person sitting next to you on that dreaded Brisbane to Hobart flight. You got them trapped. You may as well dribble in their ear about the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. And if you want to be a real legend, play it over the PA system of the plane. Until next week, we'll see you soon on the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast.
Bye, everybody.